Makes a change to be on the end of the camera. We have our trainer here today, who is Gavin Walker, the icon of SEO from Optilian, and I'm one of the students, one of the delegates, instead of one of the trainers on this course, which has been great fun. So I'm going to hand it across to Gavin, who's going to give me a grilling for 5 minutes about what I've been doing with my website. Over to you.
Okay, Jonny, would you like to just start by telling me the processes that you looked at in terms of optimising your website?
Yeah, okay. Well, the starting point was the actual project itself, which is a site called the Safer Food System. It's a site that's specifically intended to drive traffic to a larger site that we've got up over in this corner here, and it's intended to drive traffic from Google for people who are looking to buy a food safety system, a course online. So what I did was I started off basically up in this corner here by looking really at my objectives, which were driving this traffic, and then from that started in the process of looking at keyword research. So what I did is that I used Word Tracker and then Google AdWords to try and figure out what was the best phrase. Now I could do with some more research in this, but the best phrase for actually driving traffic here appeared to be HACCP, H-A-C-C-P, which is a technical term that's used in safer food systems. Yeah. So what I did was looked at the amount of traffic that was involved and tried to go from there, really. That's fine.
Your domain name choice is interesting.
Yeah,
you've chosen the optimal domain name?
It was chosen by the client, actually. It's somebody that we're working in partnership with, and I didn't really have a choice in it. Although I don't think it's too bad. They've attempted to create a kind of brand around this particular course. I would have, having now done the research into keywords, I would have liked it to have had HACCP in it, because I think HACCP's pretty instrumental in the kind of whole process. It's the very basis of the product.
Is there a danger that HACCP will change its name, as so many standards do, assuming it's a standard or a scheme?
Possible, but unlikely in that it's been around since the 80s. It actually came from for another time. It's a really interesting story that it came from NASA. It was a way of making food that they could guarantee wouldn't make the astronauts sick in their spacesuit, which you could endanger their lives, kind of thing. So I don't think it's a term that's going to go away, but I'd kind of give it 7 out of 10 really in terms of a domain name for it.
So you've chosen some keywords. They are...
Yes, chosen the keywords are HACCP, H-A-C-C-P, which is a technical term, and then under that, to a lesser extent, we're going to go for food safety training and HACCP training. So it's principally HACCP and then those two around it. So what I did was I looked at the traffic, which basically works out at between 27,000 a month for HACCP, down to food safety training at 1,600 a month, and then HACCP training down from that again. Worked out the amount of traffic for it.
They're both UK search figures?
They're all UK search figures, yeah. Now that Google have opened up their kind of stats a little bit more, this weekend, was it?
Yeah, back into last week.
Right. Yeah. We can now kind of verify the Word Tracker stuff, so we're starting to kind of triangulate it from a couple of points, really. So what I did then, when I decided on HACCP as the sort of principal phrase, I put HACCP into Google Co UK, and it actually gave me these results. And what I then did is that I basically worked down the list from position 1 down to position 6 on the first page, doing a competitor analysis. And basically what it told me was that positions 1 to 5 didn't look, in my opinion, feasible to achieve a position. For instance, 1 and 2 is food.gov.uk, which has got absolute huge linkage in there. Position 3 was a local government site, but with a lot of linkage. Position 4 was a business, but that was well established with 8 years on the domain and a lot of linkage and a PR of 7. Position 5 was Salford University, and again I didn't think I'd be able to beat it, being an AC UK, high PR. I've written a bridge too far. So position 6 to me looked like the first one that was kind of really feasible.
How long has this site been up?
About 5 weeks.
So you probably not expecting anything in the immediate future?
I'd like to think in 12 months. Yeah. 12 months from now that I could hit page 1.
Now, those 3 terms.
For HACCP, or at least one of the 3. At least one of the 3. That would be my objective. And what I did was that I used your notes to look down, and you gave some guidance on the amount of traffic. For instance, position 1 gets 41%, and then progressively downwards. And actually, position 6 appeared to get about 4%. So what I did was take the overall traffic, assume that I can write a reasonably good you know, persuasive argument here and said that that would achieve me a certain amount of traffic. So what I did is I monetized it in effect. Position 6 going to give us 13,000 visitors a year to this website on average. And then I said, basically, if 1% of those click through and subsequently buy the course that's behind this, which I think 1% is probably feasible and realistic, it would result in £40,000 of turnover at about 70% gross margin. So there's physically worth in profit about 30 grand. Position 6 would be worth 30 grand. Position 1 would be worth 10 times that, but that's not feasible, you know, with the resources and for a few years maybe.
No, I think you always have to think though that when someone's putting in quite a generic term like this one without the training on, that they will only be interested in a certain section of the results.
Yes, yeah.
So, you know, you may get better click-through rates than you would think you would being in position 6.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought a high proportion would be interested in training or that sort of aspect of it rather than just reading legislation.
That's why I've sort of gone with almost a generic phrase of single keyword. I didn't expect to use a single keyword, but I thought, well, actually, most people are not going to be aware that you can do this online via a HACCP system. So what I want to present is some arguments about HACCP, and this talks about HACCP on what it is and what it means to small businesses, and then presents this idea that you can do it online.
You seem to have opted very much for e-learning as the descriptive term rather than online courses. Would that be fair? I think e-learning is quite a specialised.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that actually. You know, when I've done searching around it really, and also the site Tribal behind this talks all the time about e-learning, and I think the e-learning word looks cool, but is misunderstood because our first customer that has arrived actually involving this site, they were referred to this site, had a look at this, and then went on to the other site. The first one on there said, "Fantastic, when do my discs arrive?" And I was like, "No, this is e-learning." And they were, "Well, what? I'm a chef. What is e-learning? Where's my disc?" You know?
I think online courses are unambiguous, whereas e-learning does potentially provoke a bit of a misunderstanding in users.
Sounds cool, but more confusing.
Yeah, I think you probably don't want to lock out one or the other completely, and perhaps take the sort of, a bit of a mixed path to begin with. Do you see where?
And then sort of close down on it. Yeah.
Do you perceive any issues about taking someone from one site to another one to complete the transactional side of things?
You're going to lose people, There are issues behind it. And one of the things is that the site that it then takes you to, we've made the decision not to have a dedicated food training site. It's a business training site that's going to have a lot of different courses on it. So it's a difficult one. What was in my mind was this idea of creating a series of satellite sites with the honeypot in the middle. Yeah. The honeypot being where you did the course as well. Actually, then we perhaps do one that was aimed at chefs only, start-up businesses, this general food safety thing, which is just a brand idea. And the idea is that all the traffic is sort of driven into where you can do this course in a more generic kind of business learning space. But yeah, there are pros and cons. I'm tantalised, interested by the idea of creating linkage, creating my own kind of inbound links. So that's part of the idea of perhaps doing several sites that all point into one, really.